The city of Oralis floated high above the blue clouds of Earth. It was a place where platforms hung in the air like islands in the sky. Bridges of glass and steel connected each platform, and silver transport pods moved along invisible air lanes between them. In the afternoon light, the whole city glowed like polished crystal. People walked along the sky bridges carrying market bags or talking to friends, and a soft hum from the transport lanes filled the air. Jalen was making his way home from school, with a small satchel over his shoulder. He was tall for his age, with quick eyes that liked to notice the little things other people ignored. Today the air smelled faintly of citrus from the hydroponic orchards, and Jalen was in no hurry. His school day had been quiet, and he had been looking forward to a peaceful walk home. He stopped at a railing for a moment, gazing down at the soft swirl of clouds far below. Then the hum of the city changed. A sharp noise cut through the air like metal being torn apart. Jalen's head snapped upward. Across the sky bridge, a silver transport pod suddenly veered out of its lane. Its stabilizers flickered and went dark. The pod tilted sideways, spinning, then dropped toward a lower platform. Sparks trailed from its engines like falling stars. People gasped and pointed. Some began to back away from the edge. Others pulled out their comms to call for help. The pod hit the lower platform with a heavy crash that sent up a plume of smoke and pieces of metal. Jalen's heart pounded in his chest. He knew the safety drones would be dispatched in seconds, but he could also see the impact had been hard. The pod door was bent and stuck shut. If someone was inside, they might not have time to wait. Without thinking, Jalen broke into a run. He darted across the bridge toward a service stair that spiraled down to the lower platform. The air smelled sharp with burnt metal. He passed two people who were standing frozen, unsure what to do. "Someone's inside," Jalen called to them. His voice shook, but he kept running. The closer he got, the clearer the damage became. The pod's hull was dented in like paper, and one wing had snapped clean off. When Jalen reached the crash site, he saw the front of the pod crumpled against the platform railing. Thin smoke curled from the engine vents. Through a cracked side window, he caught a glimpse of movement. Someone was inside. He stepped carefully over scattered fragments of metal and glass. The pod door was jammed, so he grabbed the edge and pulled hard. It did not move. His hands burned against the hot surface. He glanced around for something to use. A length of broken railing lay nearby. Jalen picked it up and wedged it into the door seam. He leaned his weight against it, gritting his teeth. The door creaked, then gave way with a sharp snap. Jalen pulled it open just enough to slip inside. The interior smelled of ozone and heated plastic. Lights on the control panel flickered weakly. In the seat was an elderly woman wearing silver robes that shimmered faintly even in the dim light. Her hair was white and tied back, and her eyes were tightly shut. She let out a soft sound of pain as Jalen approached. Her leg was bent at an unnatural angle, and part of her robe was caught in the cracked seat frame. "Don't move," Jalen said quickly, his voice steady now that he was close. He knelt beside her, trying to see how badly she was hurt. The skin around her wound was darkened, and a slow line of blood marked her ankle. She clutched a small metallic sphere in her hands, holding it close as if it were precious. Outside, distant shouts echoed from the upper platform. Safety drones would arrive soon, but Jalen could tell the woman needed help right now. He glanced down at his own shirt. It was sturdy and lined with thin nano-thread fibers from his school's science project. Without hesitation, he grabbed the hem and pulled. The fabric resisted for a moment, then tore away in a long strip. The elderly woman's eyes opened slightly, confusion and relief mingling in her expression. "You help?" she asked in a faint voice. "Yes," Jalen said firmly. "Hold still." He folded the torn strip of shirt and wrapped it around her injured leg, tying it tightly to slow the bleeding. The nano-thread fibers shimmered faintly as they bound the wound. He had no idea if they would help, but he hoped they would at least hold until proper medics arrived. The woman's breathing slowed a little, though she still winced. Jalen looked around the cramped cabin. One side panel was hanging loose, and through the gap he saw the sky beyond. The crash had left the pod dangerously close to the platform's edge. A few more jolts and it could slide over. Jalen knew he had to get her out. He slid one arm under her shoulders and the other beneath her knees, lifting carefully. She was lighter than he expected, but her robes and the strange sphere made the balance awkward. Step by step, he carried her toward the open doorway. His muscles ached, but he kept his eyes on the safe, solid ground of the platform outside. Once they were clear of the pod, Jalen set her down gently on the smooth tiles. The smoke behind them thickened. The woman looked at him, her eyes now more alert, and she whispered something in a language Jalen did not know. Still, the tone was warm, filled with gratitude. By then, the whirring sound of safety drones grew louder. 3 sleek white drones descended, their lights scanning the scene. One projected a blue shield over the wreck to prevent further damage, while another extended a stretcher. 2 platform guards ran down the stair, their boots clanging on the metal steps. Jalen stepped back as the drones lifted the elderly woman onto the stretcher. She kept her eyes on him, and even through the haze of pain, she managed a faint smile. The guards moved quickly, speaking into their comms, but Jalen hardly heard them. His mind was still filled with the image of the pod spinning through the air and the choice he had made to run toward it instead of away. As the drones carried her toward the medical transport bay, Jalen finally let out a long breath. The afternoon air was cooler now, and the citrus scent from earlier seemed distant. He looked down at his torn shirt, the edges ragged where he had ripped it. The fabric was a small thing, but it had been enough to make a difference. He stood there for a moment longer, watching the medical team disappear around a corner. The platform felt strangely quiet, despite the hum of the city returning to normal. Jalen did not know who the woman was or why she had been in such a strange pod, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He was glad he had been there when she fell. The medical transport bay of the lower platform was bright and filled with the low hum of advanced machines. Smooth white walls reflected soft light, and rows of diagnostic tables lined the room. Above each table, thin, mechanical arms waited, in a folded position, ready to provide care. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and fresh air from the purification vents. Jalen stood near the entrance, his torn shirt still tied around his waist, watching as the safety drones placed the elderly woman onto one of the medical tables. Her silver robe shimmered faintly in the light, as if made from a fabric that was more than simple cloth. Tiny patterns along the edges shifted and changed like ripples in water. Jalen had never seen anything like it. A tall medic in a pale blue uniform approached her. "You're safe now," he said in a calm voice. "We will take care of your injuries." He turned to Jalen. "Were you the one who found her?" "Yes," Jalen replied quietly. His voice still carried a trace of the rush from earlier. "You acted quickly," the medic said with a small nod. "That may have saved her life." The words warmed Jalen, but his eyes stayed on the woman. Her eyes were open now, and she was watching him with unusual focus. Her gaze was not just that of a patient looking at a rescuer. It was as if she were studying him, searching for something. The medics worked with practiced precision. One of the mechanical arms extended and scanned her leg with a soft blue beam. A holographic display appeared, showing the injury in detail. Another arm applied a thin film that sealed the wound and began to knit the damaged tissue. Jalen could see the woman relax slightly as the pain eased. Her hands still held the small metallic sphere, and she did not let it go even when the medics asked her to set it aside. It was smooth and polished, about the size of an apple, and it seemed to pulse faintly with its own light. Jalen's curiosity grew, but he stayed silent. After a few minutes, the lead medic stepped away and spoke to Jalen. "She will recover," he said. "The leg needs rest, but the injury is no longer dangerous. She has asked to speak with you." Jalen blinked in surprise. "With me?" The medic nodded. "Go on. She seems insistent." Jalen walked closer to her table. The woman tilted her head slightly, studying him again. Now that the light was better, he noticed details he had missed before. Her eyes were a pale silver gray, matching the color of her robe. The shifting patterns on the fabric seemed to respond to her breathing. "You helped me," she said, in a voice that was soft but steady. "You did not wait for others to act." "Why?" Jalen hesitated. "Because you were in trouble. You needed help right away." She gave a slow nod. "Many people saw the crash. They did not move. You moved. That is important." Her tone was calm, but there was weight in her words, as if she were measuring something invisible. "What is your name?" she asked. "Jalen," he said. "What's yours?" She was silent for a moment. "You may call me Saris." She glanced at the sphere in her hands. "This is not my home. I came from far away, beyond the edge of your star maps. I am here on a mission." Jalen's eyebrows lifted. "Far away? You mean another planet?" Saris's eyes softened slightly. "Yes, from the Altair system." Jalen had heard of Altair in school lessons, a bright star many light years away. He had never thought about people actually living there. Saris shifted slightly on the table, still keeping the sphere close. "The journey was not meant to be seen. My craft is small and I was moving between safe points. Something disrupted my course." She frowned faintly. "Your skies have more danger now than before. I did not expect it." Jalen thought about the crash and the strange way her pod had spun out of control. "Was someone after you?" he asked. Her eyes met his, steady but unreadable. "Perhaps. Or perhaps it was a warning from the stars themselves. The truth will show itself soon enough." He glanced at the sphere again. "Is that part of your mission?" Saris looked at the object as if remembering its weight. "Yes. This is a memory, core. It carries records from my world. Messages, history, and warnings. I was bringing it to your planet's council, but now I must decide if it will still reach them." Jalen felt a strange pull in his chest. "Why would you bring warnings here?" Her gaze grew more serious. "Because something is coming toward your solar system, slow and silent. Most will not see it until it is too late. My people detected it months ago. It may not strike for years, but when it does, it will change everything. If your world is prepared, you may survive. If not..." She stopped, her lips pressing into a thin line. Jalen's pulse quickened. The floating city suddenly felt much smaller, and the distant clouds outside seemed darker in his mind. "So you're here to help?" "Yes," Saris said. "But I did not expect to be helped in return, especially not by one so young." She shifted her robe slightly, and the patterns along the edges brightened for a brief moment. "Your act today tells me something important about your people. Some of you are still willing to run toward danger to help another. That matters more than you know." The medics returned to check her vitals, and Saris grew quiet again. Jalen stepped back to give them space, but he noticed her eyes still followed him. After a while, the lead medic told Jalen it was time for him to leave. Visitors were not allowed to remain during the full recovery process. As he turned to go, Saris called his name. He looked back. "Jalen," she said, her voice steady. "I will see you again. There is more you must hear, but not here. Keep your eyes on the skies." He nodded, unsure why the words sent a faint shiver down his back. Outside the medical bay, the city seemed calm once more. The evening light was beginning to fade, and the glass bridges glowed softly. But Jalen's thoughts were far from calm. He replayed the moment when he had pulled her from the wreck, the strange sphere in her hands, and the way she had spoken of danger from the stars. He walked slowly toward home, not noticing the people around him. Somewhere far above the floating platforms, the sky deepened toward night, and the first faint stars began to appear. Jalen wondered if one of them was Altair, and if Saris's warning was already on its way toward Earth. The night after the crash, Jalen could not sleep. He lay in his small room high in the floating city, staring at the ceiling. The hum of the air filters was steady, but his mind was restless. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the spinning pod and the silver-robed woman inside. He remembered the smell of burnt metal and the way her pale eyes had studied him. When morning came, the city's light panels shifted to a soft golden hue, signaling the start of the day. Jalen dressed quickly, pulling on a fresh shirt. But he kept the torn one from yesterday folded on his desk. The edges were frayed where he had ripped it to help Saris, and faint traces of dried blood marked the fabric. He did not know why, but he felt it was important to keep it. On his way to school, Jalen passed the platform where the crash had happened. The wrecked pod was gone, replaced by a clean stretch of tiles. Only a few faint burn marks remained. Most people had already moved on, but Jalen slowed down, his eyes scanning the sky above. He wondered if Saris was still in the medical bay, or if she had already left. That afternoon, after classes ended, Jalen decided to check. The lower platform's medical transport bay was quiet when he arrived. The main doors were open, and he stepped inside, glancing around for any sign of her. A young assistant in a green uniform approached. "Are you looking for someone?" the assistant asked politely. "Yes," Jalen said. "An elderly woman in silver robes. She came in yesterday, after the pod crash." The assistant tapped on a small wrist device, then looked up. "She was moved to a private recovery room early this morning. She requested that you be allowed to visit if you came." Jalen's eyebrows lifted. "She did?" The assistant nodded and led him down a quiet hallway. At the end was a door marked with a soft, glowing symbol. The assistant opened it, and Jalen stepped inside. Saris was sitting upright on a cushioned seat near the window. Outside, the endless stretch of clouds glowed under the afternoon sun. She turned her head as he entered, and a faint smile touched her face. "You came?" she said. "I wanted to see how you were," Jalen replied. "My leg will heal," Saris said. "Thanks to you." Her gaze shifted to the shirt he was wearing. "And thanks to what you gave?" Jalen felt a little embarrassed. "It was just a shirt." "Not just a shirt," Saris said, her voice gentle but certain. "It was made with care and purpose. I have studied its fibers. They are strong, woven with threads that react to injury. That is rare among your people's clothing." Jalen nodded slowly. "It was from a school project. We were testing how nanothreads could be used in everyday fabric." Saris looked down at the sphere in her hands. "You did not hesitate to destroy something useful to help me. That is why it worked." "The sphere has confirmed this." Jalen tilted his head. "The sphere? It's alive?" "Not alive as you think of it," Saris said. "It is aware. It carries knowledge and can judge the character of those who touch it." She held it up slightly, and it caught the light, sending a soft glow across the room. "It has chosen to trust you." Jalen blinked. "Trust me for what?" Saris's expression grew serious. "For survival. Mine, yours, and perhaps your world's." Before Jalen could respond, Saris's face tensed slightly, and she took a slow breath. "There is something I must ask of you now. The repairs to my robe and breathing device are incomplete." I cannot move easily through the city without drawing attention, and I still need a certain type of filter to recover fully." "What kind of filter?" Jalen asked. She described a small air regulator unit sold only in the engineering district, a part of the city Jalen had visited a few times with his uncle. It was not expensive, but it was uncommon and usually bought by technicians. "I can get it," Jalen said without hesitation. Sarah studied him for a moment, then nodded. "If you go, take this." She reached into a fold of her robe and handed him a thin strip of the silver fabric. "It will mark you as one sent by me in case you meet someone who knows my people." Jalen took the fabric and slipped it into his satchel. "I'll be back as soon as I can." The engineering district was several platforms away, connected by wide sky bridges. Jalen moved quickly, weaving through the crowds. The district was noisier than the rest of the city, filled with the clang of tools and the hiss of steam vents. Tall structures of metal and glass stood close together, each one packed with machinery. He found the small parts shop where he and his uncle had once bought replacement tools. The shopkeeper, a short man with a kind face, greeted him. "What can I help you with, boy?" Jalen explained the air regulator unit and described its size and shape. The shopkeeper nodded slowly. "We have a few in stock, but they're not often sold to students." Jalen hesitated, then pulled out the strip of silver fabric. "This is from the person who needs it?" The shopkeeper's eyes widened slightly. He looked at the fabric for a long moment, then back at Jalen. "I see. Wait here." He disappeared into the back of the shop and returned with a small, carefully wrapped box. "This is the best model I have," the shopkeeper said. "No charge. Give her my regards." Jalen thanked him and hurried back toward the medical bay. When he returned to Sarah's room, she was sitting in the same position, her sphere resting in her lap. "You found it," she said as he handed her the box. "I told you I would," Jalen replied. Saris unwrapped the regulator and studied it. "Perfect. You have given me the breath I need to continue my mission." She set the sphere aside and began attaching the regulator to a small device at her side. Once it clicked into place, she took a deep, smooth breath and closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, she looked directly at Jalen. "You have done more than most would in your place. I owe you a debt, and soon I will repay it in a way that will change your path." Jalen did not fully understand her words, but he felt their weight. The warm light from the window cast a glow on her silver robes, and for a moment, the room seemed like part of a much larger world he had yet to see. The air regulator worked better than Jalen expected. The moment Saris attached it to the small breathing device at her side, a soft hum filled the room. She drew in a slow breath, and the tension in her shoulders eased. Her pale silver eyes softened as if a weight had been lifted. "For the first time since the crash," Saris said, "the air feels like my own again." Jalen watched her closely. He could see the color returning to her face, though her skin still had the faint shimmer that marked her as not from Earth. The sphere rested beside her on the seat, its faint glow steady and calm, as if it too approved of the change. "How does it work?" Jalen asked, pointing to the regulator. "It reshapes the air," Saris explained. "Your atmosphere is safe for me in small amounts, but the balance of elements is not the same as my home world. This device removes what harms me and strengthens what I need. Without it, I grow weaker each day." Jalen felt a small swell of pride knowing he had found the part she needed. "Then I'm glad I got it in time." Saris gave a small nod. "You did more than bring me breath. You brought me hope. I feared that when my pod fell, my mission would end here. Now, it may still continue." Jalen glanced toward the sphere. "That mission, it's about the warning you mentioned?" Saris leaned forward slightly. "Yes, but it is not only a warning. It is a path. My people have seen signs in the movements of the stars, shifts in the deep dark that do not follow natural laws. Something is moving between systems. We do not yet know if it is a force, a fleet, or something else entirely. But it is vast. It leaves silence behind it, as if taking the light from the skies it passes. Jalen's mind struggled to picture it. "And it's coming here? It will pass near your system within the span of your lifetime," Sarah said. "Near enough to touch your worlds if nothing is done. The council of your planet does not yet believe in such threats, so my mission is to convince them before it is too late." Jalen thought about the high council he had seen in news broadcasts, leaders in grand halls speaking about trade, energy, and weather systems. He imagined Saris walking into one of those halls in her silver robes. "They might not listen," he said quietly. "They might not," Saris agreed. "That is why I must gather proof. My sphere holds part of it, but the rest is hidden in an orbital station above your world. Without my pod, I cannot reach it alone." Jalen hesitated. "And you think I can help?" Saris studied him for a long moment before speaking. "I think you have already proven that you will act when others stand still. That is the kind of person I need beside me. My body is healing, but I cannot yet move through the city or travel beyond it without someone I trust." He nodded slowly. "Then I'll help you." The decision felt natural, like stepping onto a path that had been waiting for him. Saris seemed to relax at his answer. "Then there is something I must give you in return." She reached into a hidden fold of her robe and withdrew a thin band, made of the same silver fabric. Symbols shimmered across it, shifting gently as she moved it. "This is a breath link. It will connect to my regulator and share its filter with you if we travel to places where the air is thin or strange. It will also allow me to hear you across short distances, even without your city's comm devices." She fastened the band around Jalen's wrist. It was warm against his skin and adjusted itself to fit perfectly. The symbols glowed faintly, then faded into the fabric. Jalen touched it with his other hand. "I've never seen anything like this." "It is part of my people's craft," Saris said. "Few outside our world have worn one. Treat it with care, for it is both a gift and a promise." They sat in quiet for a while, the soft hum of the regulator filling the space. Outside the window, the clouds drifted lazily below the platform. The light shifted toward evening, painting the sky in gentle gold. After some time, Saris spoke again. "Before we go to the station, there is something else I must do. There is a small market on the outer ring of this city where travelers from other worlds gather. Some may have seen what happened to my pod or know who tampered with it. We will go there tomorrow." Jalen imagined the outer ring, a place he had only visited twice, filled with stalls that sold strange tools, fabrics, and food he had never tasted. "Won't it be risky?" "It will," Saris admitted, "but the risk is worth it. The one who struck at my craft may still be close, and I must know if they follow me." Jalen's hand instinctively went to the silver band on his wrist. "Then I'll be ready." That night, Jalen returned home with his thoughts buzzing. His parents noticed he was quiet at dinner, but he simply said he was tired from school. In truth, his mind was on the coming day. He lay awake imagining the market, the strange goods, and the possibility that someone there had tried to end Saris's mission. The next morning, the city's light panels brightened earlier than usual. Jalen dressed quickly and met Saris at the edge of the lower platform. She wore her silver robe again, though the hood was drawn low over her face, and the regulator hung at her side, its hum soft but constant. The sphere was nowhere in sight. She had hidden it under the folds of her clothing. "Ready?" she asked. "Yes," Jalen said, adjusting the strap of his satchel. They crossed several sky bridges, the city stretching out in every direction. The outer ring market came into view, a cluster of bright awnings and narrow streets perched at the very edge of the floating platforms. Airships moved slowly nearby, delivering goods from distant places. The air smelled of spices, heated, metal, and something sweet that Jalen could not name. Ceres moved with quiet confidence, scanning each stall as they passed. Her breathing was steady, and Jalen could see the faint silver glow in her eyes when she focused on something. At one stall, a vendor selling crystal instruments glanced at them, then quickly looked away. Ceres noticed. "He knows something," she whispered. They stepped closer, and the vendor's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his display. Jalen had the strange feeling that the quiet search for information had just turned into something far more serious. The vendor's crystal instruments glittered in the sunlight, each one shaped like a delicate branch of glass. Their surfaces caught the light and scattered it into small rainbows. Jalen's eyes lingered on them, but his mind was focused on the man behind the stall. The vendor's dark eyes kept flicking to Ceres, then away again, as if he wanted to speak but was afraid to do so. Ceres stepped closer. Her hood still covered most of her face, but her voice was steady. "You have seen me before." The vendor froze, his fingers tightening on the edge of the table. "I do not know what you mean," he said quickly. "You saw my craft," Ceres continued. "You saw it fall." A long pause followed. The vendor glanced around, checking the market street. It was busy, but no one seemed to be listening. Still, he leaned forward slightly and spoke in a low voice. "Yes, I saw it. But I also saw the flash before it fell. Someone struck it from the air." Jalen's heart jumped. "Who?" The vendor shook his head. "I cannot say. The shot came from above, from one of the upper air lanes. Too far to see clearly. But I have heard whispers. Someone has been asking questions about a silver-robed traveler from far away. They say she carries something valuable." Ceres's expression did not change, but her hands tightened inside the folds of her robe. "Did they say what this valuable thing was?" "No," the vendor said, "only that it was worth more than a fleet of ships." His eyes shifted toward her side, where the hidden sphere was concealed under the robe. "I think I know, but I do not wish to know for certain." Ceres gave a small nod. "You are wise. Thank you." The vendor straightened and began rearranging his instruments, signaling that the conversation was over. Jalen and Ceres moved on through the market, weaving between stalls selling shimmering fabrics, coiled metal wires, and food that released strange, pleasant scents. Jalen kept his voice low as they walked. "So someone shot your pod because of the sphere?" "Likely," Ceres said. "There are those who would use its knowledge for their own power. If they learn it carries warnings and maps of danger in the stars, they might twist that knowledge into a weapon. Then they must know who you are," Jalen said. Ceres's gaze moved over the crowd. "Perhaps not fully. My name and place among my people are not widely known outside the Altair system. But if they have learned even part of it, they will not stop searching." They passed a stall filled with mechanical parts. A man behind the counter looked up, and his eyes widened slightly at the sight of Ceres. He quickly reached for something under the counter. Jalen caught the movement and felt a rush of alarm. "Ceres," he said quietly, "someone's watching. Us." She did not turn her head. "I know. Keep walking." They moved toward a narrower lane between stalls, the crowd thinning as they left the main market street. Jalen glanced back and saw the man from the parts stall step out into the lane, holding a small device in his hand. He seemed to speak into it, though Jalen could not hear the words over the market noise. Once they were clear of the crowd, Ceres slowed her pace. "We may have drawn attention. I will have to tell you something I had hoped to keep hidden longer." Jalen looked at her curiously. "What is it?" She stopped beside a tall wall of pale stone, the wind tugging at the edges of her robe. She lowered her hood. For the first time, Jalen saw her face fully in the bright light. Her skin was smooth but faintly luminous, and the silver gray of her eyes seemed almost reflective, like polished metal. Small lines of light ran from the corners of her eyes toward her temples, faint but clear now that the hood was gone. "My name is Saris Althar," she said. "I am not only a traveler, I am an envoy of the Altair Council. My mission was to reach your world's leaders with the memory core before the danger in the stars reaches here." Jalen's mouth opened slightly. "So you're like an ambassador?" "In your terms, yes," Saris said. "But my role carries more weight. I am entrusted with the voice of my people. The maps in the sphere are drawn from our deepest star records. Without them, your leaders will not know where to look for the approaching threat." Jalen's thoughts raced. If they get the sphere before you reach the council, they will control what your world knows, Saris finished. They could keep the truth hidden or sell it to others for power. That cannot be allowed. The wind shifted, carrying the faint sound of footsteps from behind them. Saris pulled her hood back up. "We must leave the market. Whoever contacted that man will not be far." They moved quickly through the outer ring streets, taking sharp turns between stalls to lose anyone following. Jalen kept glancing over his shoulder but saw no one directly behind them. Still, he felt a tightness in his chest that would not go away. When they finally reached a wide bridge leading back toward the inner platforms, Saris slowed slightly. "You see now why I chose to trust you. You have no stake in this power struggle, but you acted without hesitation when I needed help. That is the kind of ally I must have." Jalen gave a small nod. "And you see now why I can't walk away from this. If someone's trying to stop you, then I want to help you finish your mission." Saris looked at him for a moment, then gave a small smile. "Then we go forward together. But we must be ready. The next step is to reach the orbital station. There we will find the rest of the proof I need to convince your leaders." The bridge swayed gently in the wind as they crossed. Below, the clouds rolled endlessly, glowing in the light of the lowering sun. Jalen's hand brushed against the silver band on his wrist, and he felt its faint warmth. As they reached the other side, a transport pod glided into view, stopping at the landing point ahead. Its doors opened, and two tall figures stepped out. Their clothes were dark, and their eyes scanned the crowd with sharp focus. Jalen's pulse quickened. Saris's voice was calm but firm. "Do not look back. Walk as if nothing is wrong. They are not here to shop." Jalen obeyed, though his heart was pounding. He understood now that Saris's mission was more than a simple delivery. Somewhere above, in the orbital station, waited the key to protecting Earth, and others were willing to chase them through the skies to stop them from reaching it. The crowd on the bridge moved slowly, people chatting or carrying bags from the market. Jalen and Saris walked among them, keeping a steady pace. The two tall figures from the transport pod stayed at the far end, scanning faces. They did not rush, but their eyes were sharp, as if they were marking anyone who might match a description. Jalen kept his head forward, just as Saris had told him. The silver band on his wrist felt warmer than usual, and he wondered if it was reacting to his quickening heartbeat. Once they reached the inner platform, Saris led him down a quieter side path lined with tall glass walls. Reflections of clouds drifted across the surface, giving the path an almost endless look. When they were far from the main crowd, Saris slowed to a stop. "They were looking for me," she said quietly. "And if they were on that bridge, it means they are already tracking my movements." Jalen glanced back. The tall figures had not followed into the side path, but that did not mean they would not appear again. "What do we do now?" Saris looked at him for a moment before reaching into the folds of her robe. She drew out the metallic sphere, its smooth surface catching the soft light. The faint glow from within pulsed once, as if it recognized being in open air again. "I was going to keep this until we reach the orbital station," Saris said, holding it between them. "But the danger is too close now. If I am caught, this must not be taken." Jalen's eyes widened. "You want me to carry it?" "I do," Saris replied. The sphere has already judged you worthy when you saved me. It will bond to you now, so that no one else can use it without your consent. This way, even if I am taken, the mission can go on." Jalen hesitated. "What if I lose it?" "You will not," Sarah said firmly. "It will stay with you as long as you choose to. Carry it. But understand this, once it bonds to you, others will know. Those who are looking for me may begin looking for you as well." Jalen took a deep breath. He thought of the crash, of running toward the pod when everyone else stood still. He thought of the silver band on his wrist, the vendor's warning, and the dark-clothed figures on the bridge. "Give it to me," he said. Saris placed the sphere in his hands. The moment his skin touched its surface, a soft warmth spread up his arms. Symbols of light shimmered briefly across the sphere, then faded. Jalen felt as if a quiet voice had spoken in his mind, not in words, but in a calm wave of understanding. "It is done," Saris said. "The sphere recognizes you now. If anyone else tries to take it, it will not open for them. Keep it close. If possible, keep it hidden." Jalen nodded and slipped the sphere into the inner pocket of his satchel. The warmth remained, as if it were still aware of him. "We must move quickly," Saris said. "The orbital station is above the city, in high drift orbit. To reach it, we need a shuttle from the transit ring. That is 2 platforms away, and the path may not be clear." They left the quiet, glass-walled path and merged into a busier street. The hum of the floating city filled the air again, the distant buzz of transport pods, the low rumble of cargo lifts, and the occasional call of vendors. Jalen kept one hand on his satchel, feeling the shape of the sphere inside. As they moved toward the transit ring, Saris glanced at the silver band on his wrist. "If you press the inner edge twice, it will send a signal to me. If we are separated, I will follow the signal to you. Do not use it unless you are in real danger, because it will also alert the sphere's systems and could draw attention." "Understood," Jalen said. When they reached the first sky bridge toward the transit ring, the air felt cooler. The bridge stretched wide, with transparent walls on both sides showing the rolling sea of clouds far below. In the distance, Jalen could see the tall spire of the transit tower, its docking arms extended like open hands toward the sky. Halfway across the bridge, Saris slowed slightly. Her gaze shifted toward the far end. Jalen followed her eyes. The 2 tall figures from before were there, moving toward them. "They're here again," Jalen said under his breath. "Yes," Saris replied. "We keep walking. If they follow, on to the next platform, we will take a detour." They kept a steady pace, but the figures matched it, closing the distance slowly. When they stepped onto the next platform, Saris turned sharply into a narrow maintenance corridor. The air smelled faintly of metal and machine oil, and the sound of the crowd faded behind them. Jalen glanced over his shoulder. The figures had entered the corridor. "They're still coming." Saris's voice was calm. "Then we move faster." The corridor twisted through the underside of the platform, with occasional open panels revealing the mechanical supports that kept the city afloat. The hum of the engines was louder here. Jalen could feel the vibration through his feet. Finally, they emerged onto a smaller bridge that led directly to the base of the transit tower. The spire loomed above, its docking arms glowing faintly. Saris pointed upward. "Once inside, we must reach Dock 7. A private shuttle there can take us to the station without being logged on public routes." They crossed the bridge quickly. At the entrance to the tower, a pair of transit guards checked IDs. Saris handed over a small card made of the same silver fabric as her robe. The guard scanned it, hesitated, then nodded them through without a word. Inside, the tower was filled with vertical lifts and curved walkways. Screens showed departure times and destinations in a mix of human and alien scripts. Saris led Jalen toward a lift that rose along the outer edge of the spire. As they ascended, The view through the glass walls expanded until the city below looked like a cluster of floating islands in a sea of clouds. Above them, the deep blue sky faded toward black. Jalen's eyes widened. "So the station is up there?" "Yes," Saris said, "and once we are aboard, we will be closer to the truth than anyone else on your world." The lift slowed as they neared the docking level. Jalen glanced down. Far below, the two tall figures had entered the tower. They were moving toward the lifts. "They're still coming," he said. "Then we must be faster," Saris replied. The lift doors opened to the docking hall. Ahead, a sleek shuttle rested in Dock 7, its silver hull reflecting the station lights. The boarding ramp was down, and the pilot, a short figure in a dark flight suit, waved them forward. "Quickly," Saris said. As they crossed the hall, Jalen felt the sphere in his satchel grow warmer again, as if sensing the urgency. He realized that if they reached the shuttle, the chase might end, or it might just be the beginning. The shuttle doors closed with a soft hiss as Jalen and Saris stepped inside. The cabin lights glowed pale blue, casting calm shadows across the walls. The pilot, still in the dark flight suit, checked the controls and gave a short nod before guiding the shuttle upward. Through the window, the floating city shrank below them, its towers and bridges fading into the rolling clouds. Jalen sat in the seat across from Saris. His satchel rested on his lap, the sphere still warm inside. Every few moments he glanced toward the window, half expecting to see the two tall figures chasing them in another craft. "They will not follow us this far," Saris said, reading his thoughts. "Not yet. They will wait until they can move. In shadows again." Jalen nodded, but kept his grip on the satchel. The shuttle began to tremble slightly as the sky outside shifted from deep blue to black. Stars appeared, at first a few scattered points, then hundreds, until the whole view felt alive. Far ahead, a vast shape emerged against the star field. It looked like a curved silver wing stretching across the darkness, with soft lights along its edges. As they drew closer, Jalen could see that the wing was part of a much larger structure, the orbital station. The shuttle angled toward a docking bay built into the underside of the station. Long mechanical arms reached out to guide them in. A low vibration passed through the cabin as the magnetic locks engaged. Then the doors opened and warm white light filled the air. Saris stood. "Come, Jalen. We have work to do." They stepped into the docking bay, where several station workers moved crates and checked tools. The air here smelled different, cleaner, cooler, and faintly metallic. Saris led him through a series of curved corridors until they reached a circular chamber with a domed ceiling. In the center stood a tall table of white metal, its surface glowing faintly. "Place the sphere here," Saris said. Jalen opened his satchel and carefully set the sphere on the table. The moment it touched the surface, it began to glow more brightly. Symbols of light ran across its skin, matching the gentle hum that filled the room. The table responded with its own lines of light, forming shapes that floated in the air above it. Shapes Jalen realized were star maps. "This," Saris said, pointing to a cluster of glowing points, "is your solar system. And this," she traced her finger to a shifting shadow at the edge of the map, "is what my people have been watching for decades. It is not a planet. It is not a ship. It is something else entirely, and it is moving toward your world." Jalen stepped closer. The shadow pulsed faintly like a heartbeat. "What is it?" Saris's voice was calm but heavy. "We do not know for certain. Some believe it is a fragment of a dark star, carrying energies that can tear apart worlds. Others believe it is alive, a traveler from beyond the regions we know. All we are certain of is this: wherever it passes, life changes. Sometimes it vanishes. Sometimes it becomes something unrecognizable." Jalen stared at the map. The shadow was closer to his world than he had imagined. "How long until it gets here?" Years, Saris said. Not many, which is why we must prepare. And why I chose you. Me? Jalen almost laughed. I'm just a student. I don't even know how to fly a shuttle. You are not here for your skills with machines, Saris replied. You are here because you acted when no one else did. When danger came, you did not freeze. You did not ask for reward. You saw a life in need, and you gave what you had, even the shirt off your back. That kind of courage cannot be taught, and that is what we need. Jalen looked down at his hands. They were still faintly marked from the rush of tearing his shirt that day. He remembered the fear, but also the strange calm that had come with helping. The sphere, Saris continued, will guide you now. It will show you where to go and who to meet. You will learn, you will carry messages, and one day, when the time comes, you will stand where I cannot. Jalen's voice was quiet. And if I fail? Saris's gaze was steady. Then the galaxy will lose a chance it may never have again. But I do not believe you will fail. The sphere's glow shifted, and one of the star maps zoomed in on a bright point. It showed a path from Earth's orbit to a ring-shaped station farther out. The path pulsed slowly, as if inviting him to follow. That is your first step, Saris said. A place where others like you are gathering, not warriors, not leaders. People with something greater, the will to protect without question. Jalen studied the map, then looked at her. When do I leave? Soon, she said, but first you will rest. The journey will test you in ways you cannot yet imagine. The chamber lights dimmed slightly as the sphere's glow grew stronger. Jalen felt the same calm wave in his mind as before, but now it carried something more. A promise. Or perhaps a challenge. He knew, without words, that he was part of something far larger than himself. Saris stepped closer. You have already saved one life today, Jalen, but soon you may save billions. He nodded slowly. Then I'll do it. The sphere's glow flared once, and the star map shifted again, showing countless points of light across the galaxy. Jalen realized how small his home was in the vastness of space, but instead of feeling fear, he felt ready. Saris touched the table, and the map faded. Come, I will show you the rest of the station. You should know where you are before you begin. They walked out into the wide corridors of the orbital station. Beyond the viewing panels, the stars shone endlessly. Jalen carried his satchel close, though now it felt less like a weight and more like a compass leading him forward. As they moved through the station, he caught glimpses of other travelers, some human, some from worlds he could not name. They moved with purpose, and many nodded at Saris as she passed. He wondered how many of them knew about the shadow on the edge of the map, and how many were here to stop it. They reached a wide observation deck. Below them, Earth turned slowly, its blue oceans and green lands glowing in the sunlight. Jalen stood there for a moment, feeling the quiet hum of the station beneath his feet. This is what we fight for, Saris said. Jalen watched the planet, his planet, and felt the warmth of the sphere in his satchel. Somewhere deep inside, the fear he had carried since the crash began to change. It was still there, but now it was joined by something stronger, resolve. He turned to Saris. When I'm ready, we'll stop it, whatever it is. She smiled faintly. That is why the sphere chose you. And above the turning Earth, with the station lights shining like distant stars, Jalen took the first step into a path that would carry him far beyond anything he had ever imagined.